Good morning. Welcome. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host. And today we're going to talk about CPS and stop taking our children. This is a live podcast that is found via Facebook. We're talking on YouTube and we're using the StreamYard application. Now, I'm on here twice a day, 7 days a week. That's at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time in the morning for 1 hour, and then 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time for an hour. That's every day. That's 14 podcasts I try to do. They are live. And if you're on that date and time, I'm broadcast from Southern California. This podcast is produced by Vincent W. Davis Associates. It's a law firm in Southern California, and it specializes in many areas of the law. The law that we're talking about is dependency court, dependency actions. We're due with an agency called the Child Protection Services. It's a branch of social services. Its sole purpose is, I shouldn't say sole purpose is, but its purpose is to protect, one, children from neglect and abuse, or two, family reunification. It's also supposed to help out the parents of their children. You may not think so, and I concur with you because my experience is firsthand with CPS. Yes, I was a victim of CPS. And when I say a victim, I'm dealing with the agency that is so bad that after talking to over 100 people across the U.S., the same thing has happened with them. They traffic your children. That's sad. That trafficking is being used by a government agency for the sole purpose of they get money from the federal government and the state by having the child in custody, by having the case open. This CPS entity, Child Protection Services, will not be your friend. They're not transparent. They have deceitful motives. They lie. They use the police. Very, very deceitful. And they trick. And when you get into CPS, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It isn't user friendly. It's a spider spinning a web that's going to get you deeper and deeper. Or like Alice in Wonderland, you fell in that rabbit hole and you don't know where to turn. You have so many obstacles. And I know how you feel because it really hurts you. It hurts when they take away your children. They can't take away your children, but that's only extreme cases where there's something going on that necessitates them to take your children. And so many of the cases I heard isn't that extreme. It isn't that. They just want to start collecting money. They want to make money over it. They're not here to help you. They're not transparent. And every day I mention my rules. And my first rule is that you need to have an attorney. If you're going to get open heart surgery, you're going to get a professional doctor that's been educated and gone through an internship and licensed and everything else. Well, CPS, you need an attorney. You need a family law attorney. You need a dependency attorney. You need a juvenile attorney, one of those backgrounds. Because you won't be able to really navigate through CPS very easily. I tried for a year and a half. I fought from the top dog all the way down. And in Southern California, that top dog lives with his cronies, I call them, in a Taj Mahal of a building. that is so overbuilt. It's like the Emerald City, the Wizard of Oz. You try to talk to them, it goes in one ear, goes out the other ear. They don't believe in constitutional civil rights. They abuse your rights as a parent. They trick and use your children. They do alienation with your children where they're just trying to turn your children against you or do stupid things and put them in with the wrong parents or the non-biological parents, or they do something very, very stupid. They endanger your children. They're not there to protect. They're not there to protect your children. They could care less about your children. My children were very, very well abused when they were in the system, and they're still messed up today. My children were stolen from me in 2015, and it took me 3 years, and I finally had to get that attorney to get them back. And in 2018, two of my three children were returned. The other one was so brainwashed into thinking that she could divorce her parents at 12 and her brothers and her grandparents and her cousins, that she is no longer a part of us. I've not seen her since she's 12. She's 21 now. But it hurts. It hurts to lose a child that you create out of love. I mean, me and my wife have been together for 32 years. That's a long time. That is a long, long, long time. But we nourish that child. We involve that child in activities. We're involved in her schooling. We house and feed her and take care of her, give her very undying love to her. And now I don't see her. Now I don't. Why? Why, I'm asking. And you guys are all probably going through the same thing to different, areas. But I feel for you and I want to help you. And what the purpose of the podcast is, even though I'm bad mouthing a public agency, they need to be stood up to. They're corrupt. That money's got to be accountable. They need a board of directors or supervisors checking that agency out, making sure that their best interest is the kids and the parents for family reunification. But to go through all this, you need to get an attorney. I tried to for a year and a half till I finally got an attorney. And the attorney I'm talking about is Vincent W. Davis. He is a dependency family law juvenile attorney. He knows how to fight CPS. He's fought CPS and won cases. He's gotten kids back. He's a fighter. He's a trial attorney. And he's passed the bar exam, and he has many, many years. He's also sued CPS and won. He's sued both federal and state against CPS and won. Because your constitutional rights will be violated. Your civil rights will be violated. And you're so helpless because most of you are in a similar situation or a pattern. You're struggling out of work, and you're trying to raise your family the best you can, and then you have outside interference. You may be going through a divorce, or you may have family members that want to take your children. In my case, I had in-laws that wanted to take our children. And they did everything they could as lay people calling in complaints that weren't true, they were unfounded. But if you get this attorney, there are other ones out there. It's not the only one, but he is offering right now a 30-minute consultation for $49.99. That's $49.99, $50 for 30 minutes that he will talk to you about the strategies of how to fight your case and how to get your children back. All you need to do is call in to 888-888-6582. Tell him that Bob Pace sent you. Schedule a time with Mr. Davis, And then when you see Mr. Davis, tell him that Bob Pace sent you. It's really important that he hears that. Now, this is the interactive podcast, and you can text me messages, and I will try to answer them. All I ask is your name and what city and state you're from, so I get a general idea of if there's a pattern in CPS or if it's all the same. And if you have a good story to tell, I'm happy about that. I'm waiting to hear about a good CPS story. Everything I hear has always been bad. It's been so bad. But just text in anytime during the length of the show, and I will answer the best I can. Now, the second way to interact with this podcast is you can call in right now at 626-698-0990 and be a guest on the podcast. And as a guest, you can talk about your case and maybe help other people out there. Your face won't be on the podcast, but just your voice, because I'll put it on speakerphone. I have no guest speakers scheduled today. Usually I have guest speaker from time to time, or I pick up someone from that just tuned in that call in at 626-698-0990. But if you'd like to be a guest on my show, and it's not right now, all you have to do is email Grace at vincentwdavis.com. It's a little ticket that goes across the bottom of the screen. You email to Grace at vincentwdavis.com. And then you tell her that Bob Pace sent you and that you want to be on one of my podcasts. And you get to pick. I have 14 podcasts 7 days a week. So you want to be in the morning podcast, or the afternoon podcast, either on Wednesday or Monday or Sunday or Saturday. You pick the date and time, and she'll schedule that on. All you have to do is email her. So I've just told you 3 ways of interacting with the podcast. 1 is to text a message. 2 is to call in. And 3 is to send an email to be on a future podcast. I want this to be your podcast, meaning I want to help you, and I'm going to try to help you as best I can. I wish I had a crystal ball that could make CPS go away. Now, CPS is necessary. There is a lot of horror stories about children being abused. I'm not fretting that wrong. But what's happened is that CPS has taken another position, and they're abusing parents and kids. They're doing alienation. They're doing trafficking. They try to get them into foster care right away. And as soon as they open a case, they start collecting money from you. And the money is not cheap. It's over $20,000 per child per kid. That comes from the federal and the state. They have lots of money, and it should be used on the kids. My social worker was a young girl that didn't have a college degree, didn't have, things you expect of like a license or a certificate. And she always would brag about her Gucci purse and her clothes, her makeup, her eyelashes, her BMW car. But she never knew about family reunification. How could she? She's hired in without a license or certificate, no college degree in social work. She also says that she's a clinical therapist. She doesn't have a medical, she's not a licensed social clinical therapist. But they're out there, the social workers think they can determine if parents have a mental problem. Most social workers think all parents have a mental problem. And they think they give medication recommendations not only to the parent, but to the child. They have a lot of power in their hands. A lot of power. Now, rule number 2 is you need to get a notebook. And the reason you need a notebook is you got to take a lot of notes, because this case may go on Typically, it's supposed to be wrapped up in 48 days from the opening of the case. But in my case, it went for 3 years. Some people told me 8 years. So that's a lot of note taking you got to take. And the reason why you have the notes is you can use that against them. All you need to do is take that notebook, fill in the date and time of the incident, the people involved in the incident, the social workers, the children, the police, and then what the incident was about. They took your children. They came by for a home visit. I met with them at their office. So you write down the incident and then you write the outcome. You write down the outcome. And the outcome may not be necessary right away. You may have to come back to it. And then you want to take a couple spaces, lines, and put the next incident and the next one, so that your book is full of these incidents and what's been taking place so that you can use it for your help to get your children back. So take that notebook. That's rule number 2. Rule number 1 is to hire an attorney. It's so important to hire that attorney. Now, rule number 3 is a very important one. It's where you do not talk to social workers or even the police. The more you talk to them, the more you're going to dig your hole. They should be simple yes, no answers, and you can be pleasant to them. Like if they ask you, do you have a job? And you say yes. Or you say no, but don't add in, well, I'm thinking about getting a job or blah, blah, blah. It's yes, no answers. Furthermore, do not allow them in your home. I used to meet with social workers out in the street by my car because they're going to see in your home and use things they see against you. They're going to make your case worse. So you don't want them in your home. And they cannot. They can ask for permission to enter your home, but you don't want to. And the easiest way to cut them off or to tell them is that you say you have an attorney, you're going to discuss this with them, and you'll be in contact. Do you have a business card? Do you have a name? Do you have a phone number? Take that information. You may not have an attorney. They don't know that. They don't know what your situation. In fact, saying that may help you because they don't want to fight parents with attorneys. They don't want to fight that. And that is so hard out there. So you're in this tangle of a mess, this child protection services, and they want you to do things. They will sometimes use the police and dupe things against you. They will do that. I was looking for some water. Sorry. Talking on these podcasts really dries you out your mouth. So it's simple no, yes answers. And most of the time, you should not say anything more. And tell them you have an attorney, you'll get back to them. That will may stop them. Also, if they ask permission to enter your home, you say no. That doesn't mean you're guilty. It just means you don't give them permission because, again, they'll see what's in your home and use it against you. Things you may not think they're damaging, they will use against you. They'll use past history. If you have a previous CPS case or been involved in there, they use it against you. I find out it's remarkable that the number of parents, there's one parent is 43 that was a foster child. They're using what she was in foster care. They do threats. They say that when your children have children, we'll be after them. Now, what kind of an animalistic person is CPS that will give a threat? They give so many threats in there you come across. They say if you don't sign this plan, you'll never see your children again. Or they'll place your children in foster care. They use threats. And they abuse parents so bad. They abuse the parents so bad. And what is their thinking? Here are two people They have created a child and they're trying to do their best to raise that child. They don't have a book. You're not born with a book of how to raise children. You're not born with a book of how they operate. You're not a machine. You're a human being. You have feelings. You hurt just like anybody else does. And it's wrong for them to put you through the hurt. It is wrong to put you through the hurt. They dupe the policemen to do their dirty work for them. Policemen have combat boots and very, threatening uniforms and so forth. They're not user friendly. Most people don't have good images about the police. And I know that a lot of it's true, but police are needed too, as well as CPS, to enforce the law. But they need to be understandable about the law. They don't have to go to such extremes where they're chasing a criminal and they shoot him all full of bullets till he's dead. They can wound him. They can make him go to the ground. They don't need to murder or kill someone so threatening. I know they murder policemen all the time. Policeman sit in his car and he's shot to death. But it doesn't give you the right, as a policeman to think that all parents are bad. And that's the sad part about CPS. They think all parents are bad. They think all parents are druggies, all parents are criminals, behaviors, and so forth. And it's wrong for CPS to think that way. They think all allegations are true. And the allegations that are just that, you should be innocent till you're proven guilty. But in CPS circles, you're guilty until you're proven innocent. You're guilty till you're proven innocent. And that is wrong. That is totally, totally wrong. Because, some of the allegations are made by lay people, not professionals, but lay people. They're like a family member that wants to get back at the other family member will use CPS, or a spouse will use CPS to get back to the other spouse. Last night, I had an aunt call in about her brother who's going through a very messy divorce, and the stepmom was trying to take his children, and they were throwing all kinds of trash around. You see, with children, they shouldn't be involved in it. You should not be, they need to be loved. They need to be cared about. But you need to show interest in them. Too many children, there's no interest shown in them. They sit at the dining table, the one meal a day, and they have to have their phone to play their game. And parents do the same thing. They have to hear that news, or they have to involve a reality series. So I'm telling you, we need to take interest in kids. We need to fight for our kids. And we need to press upon social that we're decent parents. So you don't want to cuss them out. You don't want to use foul language. You want to be respectful. And it's like yes, no kind of answers. Yes, I'll do the program. And they'll say, here are the classes you need to take. Yes, I'll do that. And go along with it and don't fight them. You're going to get a public defender who is going to be worthless to you because the children will have public defenders and the parents will have public defenders. And they're going against a courtroom, kangaroo court, that everybody's cahoots with each other. The social workers in cahoots and everything else. And I feel sorry that you have to go through all that. That is really wrong. That's really, really wrong. So, with that being said, you have to stay the course. If you're like sailing a boat, you got to stay the heavy winds you're going to get. You're going to be that Alice in Wonderland down that rabbit hole, chasing all kinds of closed doors. But hopefully you'll see the difference between a public defender and a real CPS attorney that can fight for your kids coming back. Now, as I keep doing these shows day after day, twice a day, I do try my best to make them different. I try to be creative. I try to share you things like ICWA, which is the Indian Welfare Child Act, the Motion 388, Public Code 300B. There's lots of things that I try to bring into play so they can help you all get through your case and get your children back. Your goal is to get your children back, and you're going to have to go through hoops, and you're going to have to be persecuted and fight things you may not know that are bad things in there. But you can do reunification. We can do reunification. Excuse me one moment, please. Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption. I'm trying my best. The circumstances that I have here is the lack of privacy. It's so hard. So you that are listening are thinking about what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? You can call in or text me or schedule a time to be a guest, and that will help you. It helps to talk about your case, to get out there in the open and get resolved. I know you're embarrassed about it, and you have family and friends may watch and use it against you. It's a horrible thing. I put my name out there, and a lot of people know me. But I'm proud of who I am. I'm sad that I had to go through that experience. I was 60 years old at the time, and I had just lost my job through no fault of my own. And as I was going through a perfect storm where my retirement was cut in half when the banks collapsed. And then I found out I had a predatory loan and I had to deal with that and fight that. And then CPS started making phone calls as soon as I lost my job. My in-laws were sitting there saying stupid things like the kids didn't have clothing. They weren't taken to school. They didn't have utilities. Just stupid things. Just stupid things. But that's a sad thing when you have people that abuse CPS. Now, the other kind of individual that calls in CPS is the professionals, the teachers, the firemen, the police, the doctors, the nurses. If they observe any child with a neglect or abuse, they're going to call it in. They have to, by law, they have to if they work with children. They have to call it in. And they will call it in and say what the problem is. And then when they call in the allegation, all right, already the case has to be investigated within 24 hours. 24 hours they have to investigate the case. 24 hours. And they do first so by calling you or coming to your house visit. There you say my rule number 3. Just no yes answers. Do not let them in your home. I did all those rules wrong. I didn't do anything right, it seemed like, because I didn't know. If I knew what I knew then, I would never have lost my children. I'd still probably have my home. Because after the harassment of the phone calls, they eventually got to come to my home. And I had just got news of my parents, that were slowly dying, and they wanted to get rid of their personal belongings. So they asked me, could you help them? And I took their belongings, and they had like a 4,000 square foot home, and that's a lot of belongings. And I had them in my home, and unnoticing to me, CPS took that as you're being neglected to your children. You're making it unsafe if those boxes could fall on your children or hurt your children or the furniture. And my children at the time were 9, 12, and 15. So they weren't young children. And they're taller than the boxes, the furniture. So I really don't see how that can happen. I mean, the furniture doesn't walk up the stairs, they have their own bedroom. The boxes don't fly up the stairs. And they weren't in imminent danger. When CPS saw that for neglect, they thought the children were in imminent danger and they wanted to take them in, and they took them to a shelter. They took them to a shelter, and it was a bad shelter. See, for 5 years, I've been avoiding the CPS workers. In the beginning, I had taken them into my home. I had nothing to hide. There's nothing there that they could see. Because at that time, I had not got my parents' belongings. Now, there was some distress showing because my yard, I couldn't afford the guys that cut my yard or do my yard or like that. So my yard was getting a little overgrown. At first, when I had my personal belongings of my parents, I stacked them in the front apron of my garage, driveway apron. And I lived in a private neighborhood, and that was against the CCNRs, so I had to move them inside, and that's made it 10 times worse because I put them in the yard, I put them on the front porch, I put them in the house, I put them in the garage. But with my things and my parents' things, it was too much. And see, they've been married for over 55 years, so they had a lot of things they acquired over 55 years. We all do. We all acquire things, and what they are things. You can't take them when you die, but they're things, and everybody feels their things are important. Even I see it with my kids. I wanted to use a cushion for my back, and one of my kids said, "No, you can't do that. You gotta leave it in the box. You gotta leave it in the box." But anyway, when they got into the home, that's when a disaster struck. They used a dupe thing. What they did is that they called the police department and made some stupid remark that got them involved. And the detective had followed me from when I picked up my son and then had a black and white car pull me over because he knew that he couldn't pull me over because it was an unmarked car. Now listen to the black and white guy, and the black and white guy was doing a smoke screen for the detective. I should have said to him, "Well, write me a ticket wherever I did wrong." And when he said that this guy behind him wants to talk to me, it was a detective with a badge, combat boot, battle fatigues. I mean, he looked like he was off to a war. Little did he know that this guy was so creepy. This police detective was so creepy that his only thing was to try to dupe and get something off me. I don't know why. But he said I must follow him to my home. I could have said, "No. Do you have a search warrant?" And I didn't know the law then. I could have said, "Give me the ticket, arrest me, and do whatever you need to do, but I'm not taking you to my home. I'm not going to meet you in my home. My home is my castle, unless you think there's something seriously going on." And I guess when I arrived by following him, because I went ahead and followed him back to my house, I had my young son with me. He's 9 years old going through this tragedy. It's wrong. Why should a 9-year-old be exposed to trashy people? And the reason why I call CPS the policemen trashy, because they acted like trashy people. They had no respect. They had no respect for me or my wife or my children. And when I got to my house, it was stupid. It was terrible. There was 5 firemen there. I don't know what they were there for. 2 code enforcement, 2 uniformed policemen, and 3 social workers, all standing in front of my yard like it was something terrible going on in the house. There was shooting going on. Someone was bashing kids against the wall. I don't know what they were thinking, but they insisted to go in my house. And me being a law-abiding citizen, I thought what they're saying was true. If I'd known that they can't go in your house without a warrant, I would have stolen my ground. Look, I'm getting my attorney. Mr. Davis, and he'll explain to you what you can do and not do. But I did not have an attorney. I didn't even think about that. And at that time, I was going through a hard time. I had lost my job through no fault of my own. I was trying to get work. I was maintaining some type of decency with the home because I had mortgage payments to pay. And they weren't small, they weren't cheap. Not counting the food, utilities, or anything else in life, I had $5,000 a month to pay to keep that house. Property taxes, the first mortgage, the second mortgage, $5,000 is a lot of money. And that was in 2010. And now it's 2024. So 14 years later, it probably would have been more. I don't know. I had a nice first, nice second. And when I was working, I was able to pay that, even though I had a predatory loan. Oh my God, I wish I'd never have taken that credit line. That was the worst mistake. People are told they take credit lines and you have to pay anything unless you use it, but you only have a 10-year life of that credit line. Otherwise, you got to pay it back. So I'd be really careful about getting credit lines. I'd be really careful about that. So here are this group of individuals. Most of them dressed in battle fatigues. Even the social workers had jeans on, and looks like I don't know what they were trying to expect. And so they go in through my gate into my home, and they remark what a beautiful home it was. The policemen were so bad, they didn't take off the boots. They trapped all the dirt and crap in the house, went upstairs to my master bedroom, opened the double doors, and were saying, wow, look at this place. Then he jumped on my white chair and broke the bamboo because he wanted to look at the swimming pool in the backyard. They were destructive. They could care less about my home. Now, if I go to your home and I wear combat boots and I sit there and put dirt on your white thing or break your furniture, you think that's a nice thing to do? Well, that's what the police did. The firemen were sitting there measuring my smoke alarm to see if it was at the right spot. They were testing my smoke alarm. It took 5 firemen to test the smoke alarm? Oh, geez. It was like they're on the vendetta. The code enforcement people were checking to make sure the swimming pool was secured. They wanted to see if there's a lock on the back door that enters the pool area. They wanted to see if there's a gate around the pool area and the thing was fenced off. The only thing they found, 2 things they mentioned, was that your gate to get into your yard needed adjusting. It was loose. And that's simple. All you had to do is, tighten some nuts and bolts and it'd be fine. But they're trying to make a case out of that. And then they say your yard was too overgrown. Well, sure, it's overgrown. If you can't afford a landscaper to take care of your home, how's it going to get cut? Now, I'm not saying I can't cut. I'm 60 years old, or 65 at the time that they were invading my life. But I did my best. So here I'm at 65 years old. That's supposed to be your golden years. My mom and dad and my wife's mom and dad retired and were enjoying life when they're in their 50s. So here I had to take a job to maintain this lifestyle. This home was overpriced to begin with. It was a nightmare. And the only reason why I got that home is that I had a predatory loan where the lender doubled my income and changed documents on my loan. It was terrible when I found that out. Yeah, I did sue them, and I got $5,000. $5,000 for a predatory loan. Yes, the place countrywide is out of business. And the guy, his first name is John Levy, is still doing the same thing to other people out there at another lending place. You know, the banks failed, lenders failed, but the guys that did it were never punished. John Levy is still giving out loans, predatory loans. He's still bad news. Anyway, what can I say? You have these people. I mean, the social workers were so terrible. I was just horrified what they're doing to my home. They could see the children were okay. The rooms were not messy. They had a place to sleep. They had clothes. They're in school. They're maintaining A's and B's. One was in elementary school. One was middle school. One was in private high school. And they were all doing well in school. And we as parents were very much interested in their well-being. We go to school, back to school nights. We go to teacher conferences. We go to the performances our kids had done. They may have a music recital or they have a play they're in. They also had activities after school, like fairs and Halloween. I mean, we were always involved with our parents. We as a family did everything together. Mom and dad never had private date nights. I think there was only one night that I can think of where mom and dad went out, and it was a party at my work at the Balboa Pavilion. And we always did things with kids. We traveled with them together. We went to countries. We went to, in the United States, go to Grand Canyon. We go to Vancouver Island in Canada, Banff, and all those places. We traveled to countries, Portugal, Brazil, Hawaii. And I tried to, in my 2 weeks, do that. I tried to always do something fun, but it was the family. It wasn't where mom and dad would go off and have a 2 week spring somewhere. I mean, I did try to on birthdays and occasions in the past. And if I had to do my life all over again, there's lots of changes I would have done. I can't say I would never got married because I have beautiful children and I love our children. And I love my wife. 32 years is a long time. But right now, we're at a really low point of our lives together. We're trying to make it ends meet. I did get a job, but then I lost it, my age, and now I'm 74 years old trying to get another career job. And it was hard. It was hard. It was hard. I mean, other night there was a guy that was a guest with Biden when he did his speech. President Biden gives, and the guest was a 70-year-old man who said to President Biden, "What am I doing wrong? I'm 70 years old. I still have to get a job to feed my family." He says milk has doubled, bananas has doubled, gasoline has quadrupled, but my wages have not, and jobs are not out there. This is a whole mystique that we're better off now than we were supposedly. No. Yes, the market for jobs may have gone up, but I think all it did is the immigrants have taken most of those jobs, and the immigrants are fused in with the statistics. We have a bad case of everybody coming into the country there because they're inundated CPS. There are CPS cases with people from other countries that may not know how to take care of their children or something. You see, as an immigrant, they get the full benefits of social services. They get food stamps, get Medi-Cal, they get a job, they get a shelter, they get clothing. And their kids get to go to school free. Why? Because they're broke? Yeah, they're broke. We are broke And they started cutting back when I tried to recertify to get some medical help. And it's hard. My wife doesn't have medical. And they keep telling me, oh, you can peel it or something like that. Then it said in April it's going to change. More people will be eligible. I am low income right now, very low income. I can't even pay my bills. I have to beg and borrow from people. And I know how it is to be destitute. I've been that way. When I had to sell my home to fight the case, I had. Hold on a second, please. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry for the interruption. It is so hard. I'm doing this podcast because I'm trying to help out others. I'm trying to help out my family. I'm trying to help out my family. I'm trying to help you all out there. That's why I do this podcast. And I try to be focused on how to get back your children. And I do bring in other things that relate to CPS, that relate to you all that you're going through things. We have about 13 minutes left of the show. I would like you all, if you'd like to talk on the show, call in at 626-698-0990. And you can be a guest on my show right now, talking live. There's still 13 minutes left of the show. You can also text me a message. I love the texts. Just put your name and the city and state you're from. And if you don't want to, and you do not want to be on the show, but maybe be a guest later on the show, you can write to Grace, our producer, at grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's Grace at vincentwdavis.com. So that way you can be on the show whenever you want to. I try to collect my thoughts. I told you how important it is to get an attorney. Mr. Davis is the man. It wasn't until I got him till I got my kids back. So call in at 888-888-6582 and ask for a consultation. He's $49.99 for a 30-minute consultation. And he'll talk to you about the strategies of how to fight CPS and how to get your children back. And if you like him, you can retain him too. He's open for being retained. He can be your knight in armor fighting against CPS. That's so evil. And why do I say they're evil? Well, it's the 100 plus people that have called in that said the similar things. Me, I know from firsthand experience. I know from firsthand experience. And on top of that, some of you may get a double whammy. Now, what I mean by double whammy is you'll have CPS cite you with neglect and abuse, and then you'll have a detective who turns his information over to the public defender and then criminally wants to charge you. And they'll tack on other charges that are not true. That's why I think our whole system is so corrupt. I find that the judges, the lawyers, the police, and the CPS have something all in common. And that's a general statement because not all of them are bad. But they want to abuse people. They're down and out of their luck. They don't attack the very well-to-do or rich, except if they want to do a political statement like they're doing with Mr. Donald Trump there. But I went back to that guy who at 70 years old was telling Biden on his speech, what am I doing wrong? I can't make it. I have to work. Our society is so bad. It should not be that way. Everybody in the world wants to live here, but we can't take everybody in the world. Right now, the latest thing is Haiti. That has now gone out of control. And people want to send aid to them. I mean, it seems like the United States doesn't care about its own. Why is CPS so corrupt? They should be able to, be educated enough to help out our own. I mean, I don't understand it. Now, I did mention earlier about some of these things like the ICWA. Now, usually after your children are taken, you have a safety meeting to determine where the child will be placed for a temporary time while you're going through these allegations. I don't know why they call them allegations. You're guilty as far as they're concerned. But this ICWA, Indian Child Welfare Act of 1979, protects our Indian children. Now you probably say, why we're concerned about these people? Well, these people were the first immigrants. They're the founders of this country we live in. When the Europeans came over, or the Vikings came over before the Europeans, they were seeing this new world, lots of wealth and so forth. And the Indians at that time, maybe they thought they were savage. Why? Because their lifestyle is different than ours. I think Vikings were thought as being savaged. Romans thought the Britons were savaged, so it's an interpretation. But this man of 70 was going nowhere. And I'm 74 and I feel like the same boat. I'm not too old to work. I am looking for jobs. But it is crazy out there. It really is. It's hard market out there. But I do want you all to know that there is still a chance to get your children back, even though they may be taken. If you don't want to get an attorney and you want to use a public defender, then use a public defender. Make him work for you. If he isn't working for you, go to the public defender's office and get him replaced. There's things you can do. Now, the ICWA Child Act of 79 tells that CPS workers must make sure that if there's Indian children, that the parents are notified, and if they're registered or could be registered, they're turned over to the Indian families. The Indians take care of their own. Because for a long time, after the Indians were put on reservations in the late 1800s, children were being abused. Their heritage was told to forget their heritage, to speak English, not speak their native tongue. to cut their hair off, to wear, European style clothes. All that was wrong. They did the same thing to the Polynesian people too, in the South Pacific. But this act was passed to protect the children so that they would not be put in foster care. So many of the kids in the 1910s, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and 60s were put into foster care. So many Indian parents have lost their children. So many Indian parents. And why foster care is so easy or whatever it is, if you want to be a foster care parent, you can just apply to CPS. They'll make you one. They'll make you one, a foster care. If you want to adopt a child, it's totally different. It takes years to adopt a child. And if it's out of the country, that's even harder. It involves a lot of money. But with foster care, it's easy. Children are put in there because they're in the direction of CPS. So CPS is really, 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 really bad. I mean, I don't know how many times done. Now, I mentioned another thing called the Motion 388. If any of you, are going through your case plan and finished it, or you got some new evidence or whatever, a 388 motion is a hearing. You're asking the judge to have a hearing. They're supposed to have a hearing within 30 days. And the purpose of the hearing is to make a change to the existing plan, to bring your children home, to change the monitor visits. If you've finished all your classes, all your programs, you were maybe accused of doing drugs, you've been drug-free for a year, that's the time you enter that information because you want the kids returned to you. Do not give up on them. So have your attorney or public defender look at a motion 388. It's very important motion there. Now, Health and Welfare Code for Families 300B will tell you what they're supposed to do and cannot do. And also you need to look at the handbook that CPS has because they can give you a lot of insight. There's always a page for every state that's dedicated to child protection services, to family reunification, and so forth. You need to look that over. You need to look at that information. But whatever you're doing out there, do not give up on your children. You love your children. I know you do. I love mine. And even though my daughter now is 21, I've not seen her since she's 12, it still hurts me every day of my life. It still hurts me every day of my life. But I hope you got something out of this show, and I hope you don't give up on your kids. Do not give up on your kids. They mean the world to you. They mean the world to you. Well, this winds down our show now because we're less about a minute away. My time would be up. But I'll be on again this evening at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I hope you guys come and join in. I'd like to see some participation. I'd like to see some emotes or something like that. A thumbs up or heart or something there. That would be great. So I hope you do get your children back. Whatever you do not say no. Do not give up. I hope the new year is much success and happiness your way. I care about you. I know you will get your children back. I want to thank you very much for listening. God bless y'all. This is Bob Pace signing off. Oh, hi, Brenda Lee. I am a man who is involved in CPS, in sharing my stories and help others in CPS. Brenda Lee just came on at 10:59 with 1 minute to go. So again, I'm Bob Pace. I've been through CPS. I've had my children, trafficking from CPS. I'm trying to share my experiences and my times, Brenda Lee. If there's something I can help you out with, please see me tonight at 7 o'clock. Again, God bless you all, and I'll see you this evening.